Yo, what's up guys? Today I decided we're going to do a series called Road to Rank 1 Ladder on Pixelborn. And that's it for the series. Thanks for watching. This is actually not as much of a display of skill as it is a testament to how little life responsibility I've had in the past month. But actually though, I wanted to do something different today and talk about the Set 2 metagame and ladder. And as probably the person with the most ranked games on ladder, I feel like I have a decent insight on the current developing state of the metagame and Set 2. Now, the way the new Pixelborn Ladder works is that you play a series of best of fours. To gain 10 points, you need to win 3 out of the 4 games, and if you lose 2, the series resets and you gain nothing, but you also lose nothing. This means to get to 1,000 points in Grandmaster, you need to have a 75 or 100% win rate in each best of 4 series you play. And you need to do this for 100 series, which, if you never lose a game, is 300 games. But if you're me and no life grinded out with a mediocre win rate, it's about 900 games. And that's just on my main account. Now, a lot of the top Grandmasters on Ladder usually stick with 1 or 2 deck archetypes in a pursuit of perfecting their play and deck lists, so their win rates will be significantly higher than mine, while I choose the Brew Life, and I have an arsenal of over 25 deck lists, the majority of which are failed experiments and trash. And my above average win rate with experimental brews and being at 1,000 ladder points is why I'm fairly confident in making the claim that I probably have the most ranked ladder games played out of anyone on Pixelborn. I believe the term they use for someone like me is Jack of all trades, Grandmaster of fun. Alright, whatever, no goofing around. This is a serious video. Let's get to the tier list and what I think are the best decks in the metagame. And we're going to start from the top since the top 2 decks should come as no surprise to anyone. In S tier, there are 2 decks that dominate and define the metagame, Red, Purple, and Steel Song. The 3 strongest colors in Lorcana are purple, steel, and red, and to remain competitive in the metagame, I think you must pair one of your colors with one of these 3 colors. Purple because of the incredibly imbalanced nature of the Merlin Mim package, and red and steel because those are the colors with the best access to removal and the only colors with mass board clears. So to no one's surprise, number 1 at the top of the list is Red Purple. I'm going to clump all the red-purple variations together as they're all incredibly strong, but there's probably around 2 or 3 major variations of red-purple, and I think they're all equally S tier. You got Arthur, LeFou, Pinocchio versions, which are much more on the extremely aggressive side of the spectrum, and then you got the Maleficent Dragon, Yzma, and sometimes Elsa versions on the more classical control end. And then you got everything in between that can be adjusted to tune the deck to beat hyper aggro decks or mid-range control decks. I think a card that's being seen a lot in most versions is Surfer Mini, and I think she's definitely quite good and was slept on for a long time. My entire brewing experience for most of Set 2 was with the goal of beating Red Purple, but across almost every single deck I've tested and concocted, my realization came that nothing can easily counter the Red Purple package, and one of the best counters to Red Purple was to play purple yourself. The design team of Lorcana kind of missed the mark on these, as they mistakenly overstatted cards like Fox, Snake, Goat, and Rabbits, completely underestimating how little of a drawback self-bounce was, and actually it turned out to be more of a benefit. In Set 1, we had overstated cards like Rapunzel that really warped the metagame, and people were forced to build decks with Rapunzel in mind and had to play games around Rapunzel. But ultimately, she was still a singular card. In Set 2, we have an entire package that's overstated. The existence of Fox Mim, for example, makes otherwise high potential cards in the set like Sisu or Namari extremely bad in the meta, and has significantly devalued the strength of cards like Kuzco in green. A card like Snake Mim completely dominates the board early game, with almost no other cards being able to efficiently challenge its board presence in the 1, 2, or even 3 drop slot. Previously, in Chapter 1, deciding to play your 1-drop characters was a meaningful decision that actually carried a lot of impact on whether you needed the 1-drop for ink for your future turn curves, or surviving early game and risking some inking issues on later turns. Now, purple makes that turn 1 decision point completely unnecessary, as you can just always play a 1-drop, even quest freely for a lore, and bounce it back to your hand and use it as ink. Did I mention you also get a freaking 3/3 on board on turn 2 that immediately puts an end to any sort of aggressive quest ideas your opponents might have had? Rabbits are just cheaper surfer stitches that, aside from being uninkable, which they finally got some part of stat balance right I guess, otherwise has no downside and almost no effective counterplay from the opponent. And don't even get me started on the uninteractive nature of goat lore. He's not called the goat for no reason. I could probably rant for an hour about how ridiculous the purple bounce design turned out to be, but I'm sure you guys have already heard enough about it and experienced it in person, so I'll just summarize with one final remark. In job interviews, a common question they allegedly ask you is, what is your greatest weakness? Now, I say allegedly since I prefer to be unemployed so I can grind Pixelborn Ladder all day long. But you're apparently supposed to answer this by turning a weakness into a strength or something. I never really quite understood what this meant, but after set 2, I've now found myself working 7 days a week. So shout out to Purple Bounce, I guess. The second best deck in the meta is Steel Song. Again, there are multiple variations such as Classical Lantern, Flutes, and more recently in development, Snow White tech. But Steel Song isn't going anywhere since set 1, as the entire mechanic of singing songs is also by nature just busted. The most expensive card in Magic the Gathering is Black Lotus, because aside from just the rarity of the card, Black Lotus also allows you to temporarily gain a 3 mana, or ink as we call it in Lorcana, tempo, which apparently allows for completely broken combos and plays on a single turn. While singing is kind of like that. A character like Ariel or Cinderella, just by exerting, can suddenly give you 3 or 5 ink boosts and play a song that can completely ruin your opponent's day. And abusing some of the most powerful songs in Steel, like Whole New World or Grab Your Sword, and now Storm Rage on, it's no wonder Steel Song was public enemy number 1 going into set 2, until Red Purple took the spot as number 1 villain. The only reason Steel Song isn't the number 1 spot is because unlike Red Purple, the deck actually has some hard counters, particularly Popsicles or some Blue Steel ramp variants. Steel Song, from my experience, goes fairly toe-to-toe with Red Purple in the matchup, depending on which variation each player is running, although you could argue that the Flute version in particular has quite a favorable matchup against Red Purple. But then again, if flutes become a popular thing, more Popsicle decks will pop in, and Red Purple will probably find ways to adjust and tech their decks against flutes. While in most deck discussions I've come across with other colors, they constantly have a problem of not finding enough good cards to fill certain slots. But Steel Song's primary deck brewers have the unfortunate first world problem of having too many good cards for the deck and not knowing which cards to cut. All in all, Steel Song and Red Purple are 2 of my highest win rate decks on Ladder, and my win rate is lower than the typical Steel Song or Red Purple specialist, as I mostly mess around with junky version builds of them in an attempt to break the meta. Alright, let's move on to the A tier decks, as I think these 2 decks just stand a cut above the rest in the metagame. Now, I might be a bit biased about my number 3 pick for a deck, but it's Purple Steel. It combines one of the best ways to counter the purple package, which coincidentally is just by playing purple yourself, and one of my favorite pastimes, which is milling people with another busted card. This is one of my few decks of my 25 deck arsenal that actually has a barely positive win rate against both Red Purple and Steel Song. Now, Purple Steel doesn't have to play Wheel, which is my preferred version, as a more traditional Purple Steel control exists out there that has also been quite successful. As I mentioned earlier in the video, the best colors are Purple, Red, and Steel, and you'll notice that the best decks in the meta all play some color pairing of these colors, especially with Red and Steel for removal. So I think it's only natural that Purple Steel makes this list and comes in third, although right now in the live tournament metagame, which I believe to be a bit behind the online Pixelborn meta, Purple Steel has not shown much results, but I'm confident it'll start appearing as the live metagame catches up a bit. I won't cover this archetype too much as it's similar to Red Purple. You just bounce stuff and win off the back of the purple package. But Steel has some extra card advantage playing Steel Beast and a more direct tempo removal package in the form of Steel removal cards and Tinkerbell. It also has the very important card Benja, which becomes more and more relevant in a meta where items are starting to become more prevalent. So I recommend giving Purple Steel a try for those of you who haven't given it serious consideration. At number 4, we have Purple Yellow Hyper Aggro. Originally, this deck was in my S tier list at around number 3, as it had phenomenal results against the then popular Popsicles deck and red-purple control lists. But since then, Popsicles has had a massive decline in popularity, and red-purple decks simply found ways to answer the Hyper Aggro package. Hyper Aggro also does extremely poorly in a Steel metagame, and with the fall of Popsicles and the re-rise of Steel Song and surge of Steel in general, I'm happy placing Purple Yellow Hyper Aggro in the number 4 spot and also in the A tier section. It's definitely a decent pocket pick for if you think your local metagame will not have much Steel, or if it has a lot of Popsicle enthusiasts. The deck plays all the hyper aggressive cards like Lilo Maleficent and now Pinocchio with set 2, while also abusing the absurd value generated from the Purple Bounce package in set 2. The reason I actually started playing a lot more Steel Song on Ladder was because of this deck's existence, and to this day, I still fondly keep my original name for my Steel Song deck, Die Hyper Aggro. In the jungle, the mighty jungle, the lion sleeps tonight. But in the meta, the Lorcana meta, it's the people who are sleeping on the lion. 2-for-1s are incredibly strong. The purple-red deck is based off of 2-for-1ing your opponents into submission. Card advantage simply wins games, and Mufasa is no exception. He's not just a 2-for-1 in a typical way. He can RNG his way into a completely insane board state, and if you love to gamble, which given how many people are playing Whole New World, I would say most people love a good gamble, you must give Mufasa a try. At the time, rank number 1 Decandio was actually playing a red-yellow Mufasa deck on Ladder to quite a bit of success and hit rank 1 playing that week. It was around the same time I had released a Mufasa video, but after playing against Decandio and with his list, I do believe his version is superior. I'll provide a link to his deck list along with deck lists for most of the decks that I talk about in the video in the description. Decandio's version only plays 3 lanterns as non-character cards and abuses Mufasa to the maximum, as well as the insanely monstrous card engine that's Rapunzel Mother Gothel. Coincidentally, the same week that Decandio hit rank 1 with his Mufasa grind, I also caught up to him on Ladder rank 1 with red-yellow Mufasa as well. I was using mostly his version but went with Just in Time instead of lanterns, and also played the Lilo Simba package if you guys want to try it out. I was going to make a video on it showcasing Just in Time, but since I already made a Mufasa video, I scrapped the idea. But the gist is, turn 2 Gothel, turn 3 Just in Time into Rapunzel is crazy good. Turn 3 Just in Time Maui or Maximus with a Lilo or Simba on board is also really sick, so give Just in Time a try too if you don't want to try the lantern version. Anyways, I think people are really underrating the power of Mufasa aggro, so I put this as ranked number 5 in the meta in the A tier section. Again, I want to shout out to Decandio, who I really like his list, and I also think he's one of the top 3 technically sound players I've ever run across on Ladder, and a super strong theorist and deck builder. He also has a YouTube channel, which I've heard rumors that he will go back to working on in January when he has more free time. So if you guys want to get insights from one of the strongest players on Pixelborn, give his channel and his Twitter a follow. I know I'll be keeping an eye on him for more Mufasa and general deck tech in the future. Oh, how the mighty has fallen. Popsicles is a great deck with a great foundation and fundamental engine behind it, but has a fatal weakness that's dropped it all the way to number 6. It gets completely stomped by red-purple. Now, I'm not saying that red-blue Popsicles is hopeless against what happens to be the most popular deck in the competitive meta, but a sound red-purple player should just rarely lose to Popsicles, and this is a huge problem for the deck. I do think there's undiscovered routes to deck building that Popsicles hasn't fully explored yet to counter its weakness to red-purple, and I do hope someone out there figures it out, as I haven't worked on my Popsicles list in a while after being spanked by red-purple game after game on top ladder. Again, I won't cover the deck too much as I did do a video on it before, but Popsicles having a great matchup against Steel Song doesn't make up for his extremely poor matchup against red-purple. Now, a lot of people are still playing Popsicles in the live tournament meta, but again, I do think the live paper meta is going to be a bit behind in terms of development to the online Pixelborn meta, where Popsicles has mostly disappeared, with the occasional sighting if Steel Song is too prevalent that night. Most Popsicles focused grandmasters have also just moved on to playing red purple. Because, you know, if you can't beat them, you join them. I'm looking at you, Jeevis. Oh, I forgot to add, since we just talked about Mufasa and Jeevis, here's a random Mufasa clip from when Jeevis swapped to red purple from playing Popsicles that I thought was hilarious.
Okay. Okay. I see how this game is gonna be.
I went on to lose that game because screw red purple.
Goofy has entered the chat. My things are all dying with their 10-10 on board.
Past Popsicles, which I already think is borderline B tier at this point, I don't think the remaining decks are capable of matching up to the stranglehold that both Red, Purple, and Steel Song have on the metagame. I suppose some honorable mention for effort could go towards some Green Steel discard decks or some Blue Steel Cogworth brews, but from a purely competitive standpoint, I think really the top 5 decks from this video stand the best chance to win a tournament. Red Purple and Steel Song are insanely strong due to their crazy mechanics and kits that their color combos offer them. I think Purple, Steel, Mufasa, and Hyper Aggro are actually all very close, and their positions could be interchangeable, although Hyper Aggro in particular would be a more meta-dependent selection. And Popsicles is barely holding on to its 6th spot because it only really counters Steel Song out of the top 5. Again, the 2 sleeper decks from this list is probably going to be Purple, Steel, and Mufasa, but I definitely recommend giving those 2 decks a try, and you guys might be pleasantly surprised at how strong and under the radar those decks are. Anyways, that's it for this video. I hope you guys like this format, and thanks for watching my first metagame analysis.